Hello and welcome to the Space Teams tutorial for model import. My name is Alex Shane and I'll be walking you through processing a CAD model so that it can be imported into Space Teams. All right, so to start off with, we're going to be working in Blender here, and I'm going to assume that you have at least basic knowledge of the program. And to begin with, let's just assume we have a blank file. If you have anything in here, just delete it. You don't need anything for this, except for a valid STL file to import. That's what I'm going to assume that you exported from whatever CAD software you use. And basically, we're just going to go to File, Import, and then we're going to import STL right here. And I have a test file prepared here. It's just a little capsule. I'm going to click on it and then click Import STL. And it imported it, but we can't see it. We know it's imported because over here in the top right, it says, the name of that file. And it's clearly an object here, but where did it go? Well, let's try to find out. What usually happens with STLs is they're too big. Like they get imported at a really, really high scale, usually about 1,000 times bigger than they actually are. So if you press N, then it pulls up this menu over here, right? And what you can see is if you click on the actual object, you can see its scale. It's huge. It's several kilometers wide, which is probably not correct. So what we're going to do is, with it still selected, mouse over into the 3D viewport, hit S to scale, type just on the keyboard, type point, that's .001, and we've just scaled it to 1/1000th. If you hit enter, that'll lock it in. Now you can see the dimensions are a bit more reasonable for a capsule, and the scale has gone to something, about 1,000th of what it was. We're going to apply that scale because this is probably more or less correct for this. And to do that, just hit Control A and then apply scale, and then click that. And you can see the dimension stayed, the scale changed back to 1. We want that scale to always be 1 for these objects. Now let's use the middle mouse to kind of move around. Let's see where this object is. Well, it's a little bit off center. So let's kind of scroll in a little bit to zoom in, and let's try to move it to the center. So a technique that I usually like to use for this is to go into edit mode. Let's do that with tab. And then you can see there's like kind of an outer ring here. It would be a pretty good center point if it was in the middle of that. So let's, we're currently in vertex selection mode. You can see that up here. Let's go to edge. You can do that with 1, 2, and 3 on the top of the keyboard, not the number pad. But if you just hit 2 or select the edge selection mode, we can then deselect everything with Alt-A, and then holding Alt, you can left click, and okay, so it didn't select the full ring of edges. That's kind of unfortunate for this model. So instead, we got just the one. Okay, no problem. Let's hold Control and then click on another one along the edge, and it'll kind of draw a line going from one to the other. Let's kind of just continue that along this loop. Go all the way there, and I'm going to hold Shift and middle mouse to kind of move myself over. And I'm going to continue Control left clicking until I'm all the way back around at the start. Okay? And then with that loop selected, you can see it's selected in orange. I'm going to hit Shift S. That's going to move this little cursor over there. Shift S. And while I hold that, I'm going to mouse over to cursor to selected. And you can see it moved it right into the middle of that capsule. Okay. Now I'm going to tab back into object mode, right click, set origin to 3D cursor. Okay. Now its origins at the 3D cursor. Now we're going to move the 3D cursor back to the origin with Shift S, cursor to world origin. And then Shift S, selection, that is the capsule, to the cursor. And you can see now it snaps back there. Now, if this is the orientation we want, cool, we're done. If not, let's say we want to flip it. Let's just rotate it. Rotate is R. I'm going to rotate about the X and then type in the degrees. Let's flip it 180 degrees. So 180, enter. And now the capsule's right side up. Okay, so that was basically all the geometry operations you would need typically. Let's get into materials. So Space Teams has a certain set of materials that are valid for applying to a model that you import. But at the moment in this file, we probably don't have any of them. We have a default material here, which if you want to purge it, by the way, it's file, then clean up, unused data blocks, and we're going to essentially purge that material. Now it doesn't appear because it's not in use. We don't need it. So good time to save the file at this point. I've already created one called model processing tutorial, but just save it wherever is convenient for you, wherever you'll find it again. And yeah, let's get into doing the materials. So provided with Space Teams is going to be a Blender file that has all the materials stored in it. And what we're going to do right now is we're going to append some of them from that file. So if we go to append and we go to that file, you will find it somewhere, wherever you have it, just double click it. And then go to material, double click that, and you can see all of these that we have. We're going to append, let's do aluminum. I'm going to control click to select. Let's do a brushed aluminum, maybe a radiator, and why not a solar panel? Maybe some gold foil is kind of like MLI essentially. So let's get those. We just control click to select all of those and then hit append. And now in the material editor over here, you can see we have all of them. It says 0 beside them. Watch out for that, because if you close the file and then reopen it and some of your materials have a 0, that means they're not in use and they're going to get purged automatically. So same thing as if you were to manually clean it up, but it'll happen automatically. If you don't want that to happen, then just, if you have an object selected, you can apply one of these materials to it and then hit this little shield right here to protect the material. So now it has a little F, stands for fake user. It just protects it from getting deleted next time, and you can just go through all the materials like this and make sure they're protected. This is how they're being protected inside the file that has them all. We're just going to protect all of these. And now let's get into actually applying them. So we could just apply aluminum to the whole thing, but it's not going to look very nice. So let me show you how to visualize the material. Go up here in the top right corner. If you hit viewport shading, material preview, now it's got kind of a metallic look, which is fine. It looks pretty bad though, so let's improve on it. Let's first off make the model smoother. You see all these jagged edges? It's probably supposed to be a smooth kind of tapered cylinder. So let's right click, shade smooth. Okay, maybe not that smooth. Let's go here into the object properties. Let's open up normals and then auto smooth. There we go, like magic. So now we can try to kind of improve on this material, right? The actual material that you'll get in the file, it has a texture on it, but for some reason it's not showing up. And that reason is that the model is not unwrapped. That means all of the geometry isn't assigned to a 2D plane that the material can then map to. So to fix that, let's hit tab to go into edit mode. Let's select everything with A and then hit U, smart UV. And then all these settings, the defaults are usually pretty good. You want to have a correct aspect ratio, and you probably don't want to scale 2 pounds unless it's unless it's a really big thing, but we'll see. We'll see how it turns out. Let's hit OK. And it did it. And we can see over here, this is a really important thing in Blender. You can see like the last operation you did over here, which is all the same settings. So let's go into our UV editing tab. And here we can see this kind of looks like the model that we have, right? It looks like it's kind of unwrapped. That's good. This is good enough for a model like this. If you need more advanced techniques, there are plenty of tutorials on unwrapping out there, but for most models, this will suffice. And you can see here if we go into our, where is that? I need to scroll over in here. If we go into the shading view, now you can see, go into object mode, if you zoom in, you can see there's a little bit of texture starting to show up. And that's kind of what we want. But of course, for most models, you're not going to want just one material, right? So let's go back into the layout and let's try to kind of modify this a little bit, make it look prettier. So if we go into edit mode again, a convenient trick for working with these STLs a little bit easier is to select everything as we have now and hit Alt-J. And that'll try to kind of reduce the amount of triangles that you have that are coplanar. So it'll try to make quads, as it says right here, out of all the triangles. So if you had, say, a cylinder that was modeled by a bunch of rectangles in a circle, that would be triangulated in the STL file, but then you could kind of bring it back to the quads. So it's just a little bit easier to work with. And as far as like selecting individual faces here, let's go into face select mode. Here you can just hit 3 on your keyboard. Let's deselect everything with Alt-A. And then let's see if we can isolate this little protrusion here. So I can just left click on faces to select them like this. And then I could apply a material here by just saying assign when I have it selected. But that's really slow. So we're going to want to select multiple faces at once. And to do that, you either hold Shift and then left click like that. Or you can also control click as we did before with faces. Like let's say I want to select from this one all the way to somewhere over here. I'm going to control left click and I'll select what it thinks is the shortest path, which sometimes is very interesting. So I'm just going to undo that a little bit. But let's say we want to select this box. Couple things, actually, see how I'm like not really centered on it? Easy way to do that is to go up into View, Frame Selected. If you have a number pad, which I don't, you just press the period on that. And now we're kind of rotating about that. Now let's see if we can select some of this other stuff here. Can we do this face? Yep. Can we do the underside there? Yep. Looks like it. And basically we just go around selecting all of these. Or if it's a really complex model, you can hit C and that'll bring up a circle. And you can kind of scroll around with its, change the size and then just left click drag to kind of draw over which faces you want to select. That's another really important tool here. We're just going to do that and then right click to get out of it, middle click to erase the selection, which I'll show right now. Again, hit C, left click to draw stuff. And let's say we want to like select all this, but oh, we got an extra face. We don't want that. Middle click and then hold the middle click to kind of, draw erase like this. And bring that back though. And let's keep going. So as we go, see there's a couple of faces on the inside. Let's bring up the circle select again. Let's get those. Make sure we get those on this side. And then we're just going to keep going all around this model until we've got everything we want selected. And it is a bit of a tedious process. It'll take a little while to get this done for bigger models. Once you got it all selected, you've basically got this part isolated from the rest of the model. So what you want to do is maybe you want to color this a different kind of aluminum, let's say, or maybe it's a radiator. I don't know. Basically, just add a material here with this plus. Don't do this over here. This will create kind of a duplicate of whatever material this is, but you want to assign something from the space team's material repository, right? So add here, this adds a material slot. Don't add a new material here. Go to the dropdown and select which one you want. Let's say we want this to be the brushed aluminum. Okay. And then you can see it kind of looks like it kind of glitched there a little bit, but it's added. It's not assigned though. This is still the regular aluminum. If we want to assign it, just hit assign, and it'll assign this brushed aluminum to every face that is currently selected. Okay, let's remove our selection with Alt A. And now you can see it's a slightly different material. Similar, slightly different. And if we want to change it out, we don't have to select everything again. All we do is just go to make sure it's selected, go to the drop down, make it a radiator material. And now we can see, you know, everything here is, it's just been changed to whatever material we want. Okay. Let's say, I'm not sure if this model has it, but let's say we have a bunch of separated parts that we know are different based on what the CAD drawing was. And we know that they're just not physically connected by any vertices or edges. Well, in Blender, there's an easy way to deal with this. If you want them to be separate materials, for example, all you need to do is just hit L when you're moused over that part. Let's see if it works on this. It does. And see, the selection that we had before just popped up because this part is separate from everything else. It doesn't have any vertices that intersect with anything else on the model. So you can see it says select linked. That's what L does. So basically, and there's some delimit options here. You know, you can limit by the UVs. That is the, if we go back into UV editing, that's you can limit it by like where the islands here are that it cut up. You know, basically a lot of options. But if we go back, tab into edit mode again, you see we've selected this again. And then let's say if we want, another common thing is maybe we want this lip over here to be a different material. So let's do that. We see this top here. It looks like it's all quads, right? So we're going to select it, right? And we're just going to hold Alt and we're going to left click. And that selects the entire loop of faces. Now be careful. If we were holding Shift, we would have selected everything in addition to this box. But if you just hold Alt, it'll make a new selection essentially. So let's go in here and then let's see if we can do the same thing on the inner loop. Let's go here, Alt, Shift now because we want to add to the selection. Left click. Didn't work. Okay, let's take a look as to why. If we switch back to the viewport here to make it a little bit easier, it's just the solid shading. Yeah, we can see there's a bunch of triangles and loop select only works with quads. Okay, so what do? Well, we can do the same kind of control selection thing. We see this one is what's called the active face. We can just control left click and it'll draw to that one. Don't do the full loop at once because it will try to find the shortest path, but we can probably go to here safely. And then as we keep moving around, we can go to here, to here. Let's see, we missed a little triangle in here. We can just go to that one now. And now let's do the outside. It looks like it's the same kind of thing. So we're gonna not control select, we're gonna shift click, and then we're gonna control click. And when you're doing the control click, you don't need to also hold shift. It adds a selection by default. So control click this one, and then click this one, and then just keep going all the way around until you're back at the start. So now we have this little lip selected. We're going to add another material with that plus again, not new. We're going to select from our list. Let's make this, maybe this is, I don't know, MLI. We're going to assign it like that. And then we're going to go into the preview here. And we can see it kind of did that little gold foil material that you would see typically on satellites. Yeah, it's a thermal insulation. So if you go down here, you could also do the same thing down below, but basically this is kind of some of the techniques you might want to use to assign materials to something that wasn't made in Blender. And so it's not the most convenient, but it's still definitely doable. Make sure you don't change the naming of these materials. Like all the ones that are in that file are available in Spacecraft. But if you change the name, it's not going to be able to read it correctly. So just make sure you are using that file and you are using those exact materials, because another thing is the scale of the textures. If you try to build your own with the same name, the scale might not line up. And you might think, well, you know, the aluminum looks great on the model, but then when you import it into Spacecraft, it's either just too big or too small. The material just looks weird. That's because the scaling was off from what we have. So just use the ones that we have. It's going to look good in Space Teams, and yeah, you'll be set. So how do we actually get this in there? Well, let's save again. So the file that Space Teams will take in the model importer or in when you load it through a sim config is GLTF. That's there are others as well, but GLTF preserves material data really well. So that's what we're going to use. So we're going to go to File, Export, and then we're going to go to GLTF 2.0. We'll click that, and then we can move this window to the side. Just make sure you have the object selected, which we do. Okay, and then we're going to go to, I'll just put it here for now, but put it wherever you want, basically. Name it whatever you want. Space Teams model processing tutorial. Yeah, that works for us. For the format, you probably want the embedded GLTF. I haven't personally seen a difference, I don't think, with this, but don't do these. Just do the either binary or embedded. Embedded probably works best. Include, you can limit it to, say if you have a bunch of objects, you can limit it to the ones you have selected. That's why it's important to select them sometimes, so you can do this. The ones that are visible, you know, you can just go through this whole list. For the transform, make sure this is clicked. This is pretty important. It's just it aligns it with the game engine transformation, I think. For the data, you can just go through this, but the defaults are usually just fine. It will export the materials. It will export the images. But for us, at the moment, Space Teams doesn't do that, but for the future, probably important to have this as it is by default. For the lighting, don't need it. And then we can check the animation, but animations are currently not supported. So, you know, if you're just importing an STL file, you won't have any anyway. So we can hide all of that. You can also put in a copyright if you need to. And then you would just hit export, and it would take a while to process, and there you go, you're done. And now all you need to do is type in the sim config the name of that GLTF file that you just created, make sure it's in the right folder, et cetera, and then import it into Space Teams, and it'll just work. So that's it. Yeah, thanks for watching.